Okay, so in the last video, we talked about how the sine function is defined as the proportion of the opposite angle, or excuse me, the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Well, the cosine is similar to that. The cosine, COS, is similar to that, but it is defined as being equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. So the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So we could say that the cosine of theta, the cosine of our angle, equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. It is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. If you flip open your page to the left side, the adjacent side is the side next to the angle. So if you notice here, we have two of the same triangles. The opposite side is directly across from the angle. It is opposite from the angle. And the adjacent side is next to the angle that we're talking about. It is directly to the side of the angle. And our hypotenuse stays the same. Our hypotenuse is always the side across from the right angle. So our cosine, we have our hypotenuse and we have our adjacent side. And the way that we can use our cosine is, again, if we have an angle and we know that we have our adjacent side and our hypotenuse, we use the cosine function to figure that out. So our hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle, and our adjacent is next to the angle that we are given. So we're going to use those sides with the cosine function to figure out our missing side, in this case, y. So we're going to set up a proportion, same kind of idea. We're going to say that the cosine of our angle, which is 26, equals the adjacent side, which is y in this case, divided by the hypotenuse, which is 14. And this is going to end up doing the same thing. We're going to multiply by 14 on both sides. So we have 14 times the cosine of 26. So it almost looks like what we did before, but it's cosine instead of sine. And we grab our calculator. 14 times the cosine of 26. And if you have it in degrees, we should get approximately 12.58 or 12.6. So that means that y is about 12.6. If you don't have it in degrees, you're going to get about 9.05. That's not correct. So make sure it's in degrees, not radians. Okay. Now the last function that we're going to be talking about is the tangent function. And the tangent, abbreviated tan, is equal to the opposite side, so that O still stands for opposite, divided by the adjacent side. So you're going to use the tangent whenever you don't have the hypotenuse and you only know the opposite side and the adjacent side. So in our tangent function, so we've got our opposite side from this angle, that's opposite. And in this case, we have our adjacent. And we do not have our hypotenuse. We don't We're not looking for our hypotenuse. We're not given our hypotenuse, any of that. And we're going to set this up in a very similar way, where we're starting from our angle, which is 57. We know our opposite side. We know our adjacent. We are looking for our adjacent side, excuse me. So opposite, adjacent. So we're looking at the tangent of 57, which equals our opposite side, which is 15, over our adjacent side, which is x. Now this question is a little bit trickier because we are looking for x, and if I just multiply by x on both sides, like I did before, I multiplied what was on the bottom by both sides. That's what I did with sine and cosine. But if I just do that with x, I'm going to end up with x times the tangent of 57, which equals 15. But that still doesn't give me x by itself. So then what I need to do is I need to divide by the tangent of 57 on both sides. Need to divide by the tangent of 57 so that x equals, that cancels out, x equals 15 over the tangent of 57, which takes a little bit more work to put into the calculator just to make sure everything lines up nicely. But we're going to say 15 divided by the tangent, that's the third button next to sine and cosine, of 57. Make sure and close your parentheses, and you will get about 9.7. You get about 9.7. And that's our tangent function. So all three of these functions for sine, cosine, and tangent, they were able to give us a missing side, whether it's opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse. In the next lesson, we'll talk about how to find the angles using inverse trigonometric functions. But that's a lesson for another day. Just make sure we have that the tangent of theta, tangent of our whatever angle we're given, equals the opposite divided by the adjacent. And that's trig functions.